Good evening, Mind Trippers, and thank you so much for joining us on episode 2, Watching Your Mouth. Tonight, we're going to, as usual, explore the road less traveled, and we're going to explore how we watch our mouth inwardly, as well as what comes out of our mouth verbally.
So, like she said, watch your mouth. What does that mean? I'd like to start it off with a Bible verse that was shared with us that can kind of help explain a little bit what we're going to be delving into today. So bear with me as I read this. Ephesians 4:29. Don't let unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helping build others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. I feel like that is such a powerful message. There's so many people out here now speaking negativity into the world, speaking negativity into their children without maybe even knowing it. But the words that you say that come out of your mouth have a significant impact on those around you and yourself.
And I'm sure this is something you want to speak more to, but we all know about the impact that words have when they come out of our mouth. Mm-hmm. And we're going to, of course, talk more about that later in the episode, but also the powerful impact of the stories we tell ourselves and the words we say in our thoughts.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump in. I want to share this graphic that we printed out for you guys. This is something called the cognitive behavioral therapy triangle. What does that mean? So in life, our thoughts influence our feelings and they influence our behaviors. It's all fluid, so you can do it backwards too. Sometimes your behaviors have an impact on how you feel and your inner voice. So let's jump in. I'm going to put this back up here so you guys can see. So you have that there. The message that we tell ourselves can really cause us to be negative in our lives. So what are some examples that we have of that? I'm feeling unworthy, right? How does that make you feel? So today we're not really focusing on the feelings, but let's focus on the behaviors with that. If you tell yourself you're not worthy, you're going to engage in behaviors that show that you don't care about yourself, maybe. Mm-hmm. I know we worked with somebody specifically who tries to tell himself that he's worthy, but he'll eat unhealthy all the time. He doesn't go to the gym. So it's kind of like a mixed message that you send yourself.
Mm-hmm. And in a more subtle way, of course, sometimes just the way we phrase things and our thoughts that we have and how that can impact behaviors is, for example, we coach a client who always says he's a businessman, so we do business coaching, right? And he said, I'm bad at math. I'm not good with numbers. And he is in his 50s, and he's been telling himself that his entire life. I'm not good with numbers.
I tell myself that too.
That's because it's true. So, we believe that to be true. And then when we started doing business coaching, we realized this guy is great with numbers. Mm-hmm. So we discussed that and opened up that door. And what we realized was this guy just does not like doing numbers. He doesn't like doing the accounting portion of his business. That does not mean he's not good at it.
Right.
However, that negative self-talk of saying, I'm not good at this, has created some really significant problems in the business as well. So even changing your inner thought to, instead of saying, I'm not good at this, to, I don't prefer to do this, or I don't like it, can really be life-changing.
It's about reframing the message you tell yourself. If you wake up every day telling yourself a certain message, like, for example, our client here, I'm not good with numbers, that's going to show up in how he runs his business and in his numbers, and he's just not going to be the successful business owner he needs.
So instead of, when he needs to do accounting, he knows he's capable, he avoided that his entire life because he thought, oh, I'm not good at it. So instead of stepping in when he needed to, it caused avoidant behaviors and then subsequently not being able to manage his profits appropriately.
So I want to share a quote with you guys. Turn down the volume of your negative inner voice and create a nurturing inner voice that will take its place. I can't stress enough how many clients come to us and they want to better their lives or create this path for themselves, but they get stuck by the words that they share to themselves every single morning. Maybe they're feeling like they're a failure, and the words that they tell themselves is, you can't do this. There's no way you can do this. And that's going to show up in how they try to run their business or show up in how they interact with their family. They're not going to be able to do what they need to do.
So if you haven't picked up on the theme, when we talk about these inner thoughts, it's about reframing it.
Yes.
right? So for example, I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning because sometimes that's what my sleep pattern does.
She will send, okay, speaking of watching your words, I'm sleeping and sometimes my phone will light up and I'm like, what is, Nikki, it's her texting me at 3:30 in the morning.
Yes, this is true. Completely irrelevant things. That is not the point today. So I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. When I used to wake up at that time, I would, say to myself, oh gosh, I'm gonna be so tired today. I'm so mad. Why can't I sleep through the night? That set the entire tone for my day. And then I would walk around sluggish.
Right.
Whereas today, and more recently, when I woke up at 3 a.m., literally the first thought that went through my head was, wow, I'm so thankful I get some peace and quiet downstairs alone for a little bit. And I journaled, I stretched, I meditated, I watched some investigative ID because that's what I like to do at that time in the morning. But the point is, it eased me into my day.
Right.
And I had, by the time 8 o'clock rolled around, I had my entire day planned and I felt energized. So just reframing that negative thought of, oh God, why can't I sleep, versus I've been given this gift of some extra hours can really change your energy throughout the day.
And that's the difference of, speaking positive thoughts to yourself, like just reframing. There's always an initial thought that goes through our mind. You have to kind of challenge that thought, especially if it's negative. Try to reframe it into something positive. So like she shared, she struggled with, oh my God, I can't sleep. And it like bled into other areas of her life throughout the day. But just changing that inner voice you said when you woke up, instead of like, oh man, I just can't do this. I'm tired. It's 3:30. I have a long day. You're choosing to say, you know what, Nikki, this day is a gift, right? Go about your day, get things done, and
have a few extra hours to this day
have
now.
a few extra hours.
Yeah.
And guess what? You might speak some naps into your life too. I know that's something I would do. So for those of you who are watching, we do want to go over some of the thoughts or some of the inner voice that you may say to yourself when you wake up in the morning or throughout the day or before you go to bed. So we do want to address some of those things. So drop them in the comments below so we can review them with you.
So, as Taylor was saying, part of watching your mouth is watching what we say in our head. And making sure, again, even if the thought isn't negative, if it's not serving you positively, then why have it?
Right.
But also watching your mouth has to do, and we're going to intermingle, the thoughts and the behaviors throughout this episode. But another way that watching our mouth shows up in that CBT triangle is the behavior, or the actual verbal communication.
And I'm going to show you guys this again, just so you can see.
So the behavior portion is what we actually communicate out through our mouth. And I did not tell you I was going to do this. I want to play a little game with you. Okay. So
a game?
Yes.
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay. Not that kind of game.
Okay.
So, and for all of you watching too, I have 2 shapes on a piece of paper, and I've named one of my shapes Bob, and one of my shapes Kiki.
Bob and Kiki.
Bob and Kiki.
Okay.
And before you answer, I'm going to give the audience a chance to pause and think. Tell me which one I named Bob and Kiki, and then you take your guess.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know if you guys can see this. So which shape did I name Bob, and which shape did I name Kiki? Go ahead.
You want me to pick? Okay. So if I'm looking at this image, I would say that this one is probably Kiki. Yeah, that looks like a Kiki. And that one's Bob.
Okay.
It's like Bob.
This is a completely irrelevant shape, obviously. And Bob and Kiki were just names that I found fun for whatever reason. So you were correct. Bob and Kiki. So I'm guessing, I'm hoping, drop us comments, let us know if you appropriately picked Bob and Kiki name shapes. The whole point of this activity was that obviously these are 2 shapes I got off Microsoft Word that mean nothing, okay? And Bob and Kiki are irrelevant names to that.
100%.
The point is, most of us have very subtle, we're attuned to the way words come out of our mouth. So for example, Kiki, naturally, for most societies, is a hard graphics that has a flux of,
It sounds sharp, like
sharp.
Kiki, sharp.
And we associate that, most of us, not everyone, but about 90% of us will associate that with sharper images. Whereas Bob has a very modular, round, smooth
It sounds
words.
like it flows, like Bob. It rolls off the tongue easy.
Exactly. And most people associate that with a cloud. So in that, so the whole point of that is that communication is, it's really like magic.
It is.
Because I mean, to be able to assign names and 90% of an audience member get those right to arbitrary shapes goes to show the power in our tone, in our, in our pace, in the way we speak. And that is so powerful. And it's like magic because, yes, not only can the meaning of our words be used for love or hate or to produce good or evil in society, but it can really influence people if you know how to use them correctly. It can captivate an audience. It can push an audience away with two people saying the exact same thing.
Right.
How magical and powerful is that?
I think that is powerful. Like, our words have the ability to transform lives, for one. They have the ability to destroy lives, for two. And for me specifically, I kind of feel like I'm more impacted by the words that people say. And sometimes the negative words kind of affect me more. They kind of have more of a sharp effect, like the Kiki effect, right? So you have to be careful in what you say to other people, because you could be impacting them in a way that is going to make them view themselves differently. Maybe it's going to, feed into their inner voice, and they're going to view themselves as maybe not as confident or not able to accept challenges, and they're going to feel really bad about themselves.
And not just that, so to take it on a more subtle level, right? Because this is apparently
what very obvious, right?
Yeah. So in going back to what you said about your thoughts affecting your feelings, which very subconsciously and consciously affects your behavior or your words. Again, two people can say the exact same thing. Let's say it's positive, but if you say something positive to someone and you mean it, you're going to have a different rate of inflection the way it comes out of your mouth. Whereas if I say something to someone positive and I don't mean it, it's like kind of that gut instinct that we all get. We're like, I don't know if that person was genuine.
Right.
We pick up on that gut feeling because it's our ear's natural way of being attuned to the way it comes out of our mouth.
I want to say, think about how you communicate with kids. Cute kids that you see maybe out in the neighborhood, or maybe you see a cute baby at the grocery store. You walk up to them, you're like, oh my God, you're so cute. Tell me about, what's your name? What do you like to do? I mean, if you're very friendly and open.
Talk to every child,
she likes to talk to kids. But just, that's right, the tone that you speak, and it's going to light people up. Like, when you come at them with this positive energy, positive words, positive vibes, people pay attention, and it makes them feel good.
And so not only that, so we know communication, what comes out of your mouth, is sometimes nonverbal too, and what's not being said. So again, the thoughts that you have before you communicate with someone doesn't always matter the words coming out of your mouth, right? You and I can say the exact same thing. If one of us is thinking something negative, even though I'm saying something positive, people are going to pick up on that. They just may not realize it. So I think the first big takeaway of this episode is that, we can't always say exactly what we're thinking. We can't always be direct and blunt.
Unless you're a child. Because kids will always say what they're thinking and not watch their words, right?
Right, but as adults, there's something in being direct, which is good, but being brutally honest isn't always appropriate, and we know that. But nonetheless, even if you have to say something that you may not fully believe, instead of even going into that communication saying, I don't believe this, I'm going to lie to this person, just reframing that to, I'm going to say it in this way because it's going to serve the both of us the best. Right. And even that reframe of that thought will affect how you speak and how that person receives it. And that leads me into a quote that I think is so, so important. Communication is only effective and if it's meaningful to the person hearing it, not to ourselves. So I could believe everything I'm saying all day long, but I have to say it in a way that's meaningful to you guys and to you, because if it's not, then what's the point? It's not effective.
That makes me think about when we get into these little tiffs, fights, arguments with people that we love, maybe loved ones, maybe those that we don't love, like bosses, supervisors, things like that, but even our peer group. Sometimes many of us can be very aggressive in our communication style. We might say things that are harmful. One, we might not mean it, right? But we say those things, and the way that the person we're communicating with receives that can really change their view of you. So it's kind of important to make sure that you understand the way that the person you're speaking to receives things and how to help them have an assertive conversation.
And that also leads me into, I don't know why I'm full of quotes today. That was not my intention.
I think you're taking over as the quote lady. I love it.
We're trading places.
Right.
We communicate. Another important part of communication, so takeaway 3, is that we need to especially when it comes to listening, because listening is a huge part of communication, and it affects what comes out of our mouth. So we need to listen with the intent to understand the person we're listening to, and not with the intent to reply. And that's so much of watching the words that come out of your mouth.
Right. I was gonna say, can we pause that right there? Say that quote one more time.
We have to listen for the intent of understanding, not agreeing, understanding, and not with the intent to reply.
Right. Again, think about, I want you all who are watching today, and even when you watch the replay, to think about a time when you got into an argument or a disagreement with somebody in your life. The words are coming out of their mouth, right? Are you listening to understand what they're going through? Are you looking past their words to understand their emotions and what they may be feeling? Or are you hanging on their every word so that you can reply?
And with that, because most of us, especially...
That's the most common, right?
Especially if we don't agree with a point of view, before that person has finished the sentence, we're like, I have the argument, I have the counter, or we're in the shower, it's like, oh man, I should have said that.
Right.
You're not listening for the right reasons, therefore you're not effectively communicating. And I think that goes into like this, one of the single biggest problems with communication is that we assume communication is taking place. Right? Just because two people are conversing does not mean they're communicating, or at least not communicating effectively. Right? So we have to listen with the intent to understand and not reply. We have to go in with like what you were talking about, the words you use for your inner thoughts.
Right.
Making sure that you reframe them in a way that's going to create positive and effective communication.
Right. So let me ask you a question. So you want to listen to understand versus listening to reply, right? What would you say are, for those listening, what would you say are some of the major benefits that can change your life personally when you start to listen to understand versus trying to, just get your one up in and trying to come back at the other person? So what are some of those benefits of trying to switch your mindset?
I think the biggest thing is the taking away of emotion. I think previously, thinking back to my younger days, and maybe like more embarrassingly, even some more recent years, there have been moments where I would be so passionate about a topic. But the problem is when two people are passionate about a topic, chances are neither one are going to change their minds. And that's okay. So when you listen with the intent to understand, I may not agree, but all of a sudden there's no anger. Right. There's no fury. There's no sadness. It's just, like it's following that emotion of like, this is where you're coming from. I don't agree, but like, wow, it kind of, this sounds so cheesy. It opens my heart. Instead of it closing me down, it like opens me up.
I was going to say, it kind of changes your perspective too, because you're opening your mind to problem solving in other ways that you may have not looked at before. So many times we are going to not have the same viewpoint or the same perspective as someone else. But when you're listening to understand, it's the learning process as well, right? And you start to transform the way you see things and the way you view problems and how you communicate with each other in your life.
And a tip, if any of you are out there wondering, I mean, I don't know, maybe everyone knows this, maybe you don't, I don't know. It's just because I think this is ingrained in us from the beginning of our schooling. But if you're not sure how to put yourself in someone else's shoes, especially if you are like vehemently disagreeing with them, especially if it's a topic I know I'm not going to change my mind on, it's not that I like tune someone out, because I'm still listening to the words, but I'm not hanging on to every word because I'm not listening to reply. And so like for a minute, just for a second, I will tune out and be like, what's this person feeling? And it's called following the emotion. So, if I can just like, again, gently like and respectfully tune out for a second, like blah blah blah, they're giving me all these points that my point is not to counter argue, it's to understand them. Then I can come back with an effective communication. That's what I'm hearing you say is that you're also frustrated. What I'm hearing you say is that you're also embarrassed about this, or you've given up on government, or like whatever the case may be.
And when you repeat that back and you use those words to kind of explain what that person is feeling, they feel understood and they feel heard. I think that's the biggest thing, feeling heard. That's why it's important to watch your words. You want to make sure you're communicating in a way that the other person can understand, and then you guys can like problem solve. There's so many benefits to these different communication techniques. I mean, and the way you use your words.
We're social creatures. Communication is everything.
I'm gonna throw myself and my husband under the bus. So sorry, Tommy, if you're watching this.
He better be watching, right?
He better be watching. Otherwise, he's gonna have to watch my words leaving, right? But so many times, especially in the beginning of our relationship, so we've been together for 7 years, married for 2 in a week from today. But in the beginning, it was really difficult for both of us to communicate with each other. He's so passionate, and for those of you who know him, he's very passionate. He can talk a million words per minute. He wants to make sure everybody around him knows what he's feeling with his words.
He says it loud enough so everyone hears.
Very loud, very loud. I am the same way, but I had to learn, in order to be effective in our relationship together, I had to tone myself back and think about the words that I was saying, because I can come off as aggressive too, to him and him to me. I had to kind of rephrase the words that I was saying and the vibe that I was giving off when I would speak with him, because if you have 2 aggressive people, how do you solve the problem? Because everybody's listening to reply. You're not listening to understand. You're not following the emotion. You're not looking through and seeing what's happening. So a lot of times he'd be really angry. Well, that would be the emotion. It would look like he was angry, but digging deeper, I would say, oh, he's kind of feeling maybe upset by something that happened at work earlier today, or maybe he's feeling upset with me because I like to go on vacations and leave him at home.
He was feeling unwanted.
Unwanted is a big feeling too. But just to be able to sit down and listen to how somebody is feeling and taking the time to change your mind and see what their point of view is, that's going to get you pretty far in life. And that's actually like a great skill to have.
And with that, we talk about, so communication has so much influence, right? And we said earlier that communication is only effective if it's meaningful to the recipient.
Right.
So like you were saying, it's only going to be effective with Tommy if he can hear it in a way that's meaningful to him. So in that kind of forces you to also do some self-assessment to see what kind of influence you may not realize you have over others.
That's big.
For example, let's say you're 6'5" and 250-pound male, right? We again could say the exact same words, but that gentleman, if we're both speaking to a woman, let's say, or a victim of abuse, he's going to have to use a much softer tone just because his pure physical appearance may come off more intimidating. Or we've even had people, when we thought we were being super kind, say, you guys were really intimidating. You 2 are business owners and you're doing this and that. And we're like, oh. And so you really have to, again, to make it meaningful to the participant and to the recipient, to gauge your audience and understand how they may view you so that you know how to adjust your inner thoughts as well as the words coming out of your mouth.
Right. So I kind of do want to reference back to this Bible verse earlier, the part where it says, don't let unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, for one. But the biggest part about that verse that stands out for me in terms of communication is only speak what is going to help build up others according to their needs. How powerful is that? I think it can be really difficult to take a step back from yourself and think, what does this person need right now? Is the way I'm communicating with them going to help build them up, or is it going to tear them down? And I feel like so often our communication styles, even though we may not intend to tear someone down, it comes off that way.
It makes me think of, the example, like when children are acting the most unlovable, that's when they need the most love. And the difference between if a child is acting out, the difference between, let's say, putting them on the wall or punishing them versus, do you need a hug right now? Now, after that hug's over, we may have to talk about your behavior. This wasn't okay, but saying, in this moment, you just need a hug. And I think once you realize, once you pass on that barrier, the emotions calm down, the tantrums calm down, then you're able to say, this wasn't okay. This is what I expect from you moving forward. And like you said, it's like that with anything, being able to understand the needs of the other person. And even if it's not about being right or wrong, just trying to guess the needs is going to get you much, much further.
You know, we had a mini consultation earlier when we were kind of talking about the power of words, remember? And you said, it makes me think of like in a job position, when you are getting supervision from your supervisor and they're listing off the things that maybe you have done wrong, like your areas of concern and your areas of growth. In my experience, I noticed that a lot of times your supervisors will use intimidation or saying you did bad at this without talking about the good things, and it tears you down and it makes you feel like I don't even want to be here. I don't even want to try anymore because the words that you're saying to me are that I'm not good enough, right? And it makes people just like throw up their hands and like not even want to try. And I think that's the power of words with that. It's not building up your employee.
And like you even said, like some people will use the word concern, versus like our practice has always been like, what's the area of growth?
Yes.
Because it's that reframing verbally and reframing it so that they can reframe it in their mind, like, oh, I'm not bad. I just have an area to grow. Don't we all have areas we can grow on?
Right.
And so even little subtle changes like that, we're still addressing an issue.
Right.
We're still being honest and clear, but it's not, this is an area of concern. This is an area for us to grow in.
Right. And I know there's going to be some people out there thinking, you know, when we talk about this to people, that everybody is just easily offended nowadays and they can't take hardcore feedback. It's not about that. It's about matching to who you're talking to. It's about being able to reframe words that are going to build up that person you're talking to and kind of change that vibe and that energy in those words that are coming out of your mouth.
And so statistically, because you know I can't go too long without throwing that in there, the reason that's important, it's not about, like you said, it's not about offending people.
Right.
We know to affect change, whether you're trying to kind of motivate someone else for change, whether you're self-motivated, that fear and like that real harsh directness is a very short-term motivator. It will motivate someone for hours, maybe days. In order to affect statistically and with all the research behind it, long-term and sustainable change is that positive reframing.
Right. Just think about that. And I'm sorry that I keep going back to like the employee boss example.
See, we work for ourselves. Like, what are you trying to say, Taylor?
But, no, but you and I, yes. But listen, so if I'm thinking about sitting before a supervisor and they're kind of talking to me about my areas of growth, I would much rather them support me through and create a plan and help me learn and grow and develop according to the company and where they see me, and just being open to that and being honest. And I feel like that's going to make me want to be a better person versus them being mean to me and speaking bad words to me and just putting me down. And like you said, like that intimidation, it doesn't really go far. So fear may inspire change for some, but it's not going to inspire change in the long run. Your motivation is definitely going to drop off, because that makes me think like you're going to start fearing doing the wrong thing before you sit in front of your supervisor again, and they're just going to start pointing out all those things. So again, you got to be careful on the words you say to people and how you build them up or tear them down.
And I mean, the fear, like you mentioned, fear, and that's why we know like laws only work for those who generally would obey them. Like having the threat or fear of, let's say, jail time is only scary to generally people who are going to obey the law. And if you weren't, there's other circumstances, which is not the point of this conversation, but the point is that fear does not stop people or motivate them for behavior change. It's being able to, like we keep saying, reframing that positively. That doesn't mean being gentle. That doesn't mean not being direct or honest. It just means knowing how to use those nuances of the language, which we have all these amazing combinations of words we can put together. Well, let's utilize that to our advantage. Because I think the point of communication is to, one, get our point across, albeit good, bad, or indifferent, and then two, to affect change or influence a lot of times. So if we're going to do that, of course, like you said, we have to match to the audience and understand how we play a part in that, because if not, it's just noise. It's just noise.
So I love asking her questions, because if you guys can't tell, she's definitely the researcher, statistic, let me share type of thing.
Now I'm probably not going to have an example now that you put me on the spot.
You're going to have an answer. She's really good with her words, guys. So let me ask you this, Nikki. So everybody who's watching right now and thinking like, okay, maybe I identify with a type of communication style that I've been told is very negative, puts people down, things like that. How can they begin to shift their mindset and start communicating in a more assertive way, or in a way that can reframe those negative words, such as we're concerned about, and switching that over to areas of growth? Like, how can people sitting at home listening to this change?
So that, I feel like that's a complicated process. I think
told you guys, listen to her words.
So I think initially we said follow the emotion, right? Identify, no matter what, we call words and storylines content. That's kind of the language in our world, right? So no matter what content is spewing out of someone's mouth, understanding, even if it's only like 5 emotions you can think of, like angry, sad, jealous, whatever. Okay, what is this person feeling, and just repeating that. That also requires a little bit of empathy. So let's say you can't even get to the empathetic point yet, like it's combative, or maybe you're not used to it, like you're at home really struggling. So I'd say first try to follow the emotion. But if you can't even do that, simply ask, this is what we call like a listening problem or a fix-it problem.
Oh my God.
Simply asking the person, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. What are you needing from me in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need me to listen to you
Mm-hmm.
and just like vent? Because I can do that. Or do you need me to help you fix this problem? Do you want my advice? But just like we said, communication is all about the recipients,
Right.
the meaning to the recipient.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if you want to fix something. If you want to vent, I could have 20 answers for you.
Right.
And if you're wanting me to listen, I need to just shut up and listen.
And that's what I was going to say. That is a game changer. The listen, fix it. People will come to you and just blah, 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 blah. This is blah, 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 blah. Sometimes they just want you to hear them out. Sometimes people want you to solve their problems. And that's something that I kind of learned as well. I'm just going to keep throwing myself and my husband under the bus because that's the best form of communication that I have. He likes to vent a lot. And I always, being a therapist and a life coach and experiencing trauma and helping people work through it, my brain is always problem solving oriented. Mm-hmm. So when somebody is complaining or venting to me, I'm always going to the fix it. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're upset about this? Okay, well, here's what you can do. But he got tired of that. And he just said to me before, like, Taylor, you're always trying to fix the problem. Just freaking listen to me. And I was like, that's when my light bulb came on. It's a listen, fix it problem. So it does help mm-hmm. to use your words and say to the person you're communicating with, what do you need right now? Mm-hmm. Do you need me to just sit here and listen to what you're saying? Or do you need us to come together and we can fix this problem for you by the end of this conversation?
And it also, I mean, even in doing that too, like it helps you understand, I don't want to say the amount of pressure, but if you come to me and say, Nikki, I have a venting problem, I'm going to listen, but I'm not going to listen with the amount of detail. Like I can kind of like listen and also like maybe clean up the dishes while I have the phone in my ear, right? Because I know you're just need to get it out. So I need to pick up the main points and follow, wow, Taylor, that's really crappy. Versus if you're like, fix it, I got my notepad out, I got my marker, like I'm highlighting stuff, and like we have a game plan.
Right.
It requires a different level of energy. And if you go into conversation guessing the amount of energy you need to put into it, it's exhausting. It's better just to know.
Yeah, it is. So I think that's a great takeaway for you guys at home, especially those who may be struggling with, listening to understand somebody. Ask them right away, like, is this a listen or a fix it problem? And of course, you just want to do that when you can sense that somebody, like when you're following the emotion, when you sense that they're in like need, or you sense there's a little bit of anxiety going on, call it out and say, what can I do to help you right now? Mm-hmm. Girl, I just need you to listen. Like, listen to what happened in my day. Or I'm just going crazy. I don't know how to tell my boss that I'm ready to leave my job. Mm-hmm. That's going to indicate, like, their words are going to indicate the next direction you need to take.
So yeah, listening, fix it. Tip number one, and following the emotion. I mean, those two things will be absolutely, again, life-changing. Right. If you start implementing that in all of your communication.
I agree. So I'm so sorry, guys. I just love
Why are you sorry?
Showing this chart.
Thank you for continuing to look at our chart.
Thank you for continuing to look at this chart. So again, I'm going to put this up really close. The thought where it says what we think affects how we act and how we feel. I want to start with that because what we think is our mindset. If you start to think, man, I really want to start building up those around me. I really want to start using my words to impact those around me. Believe it or not, the more you tell yourself that message and you make it a part of your inner voice, your behaviors are going to start to show that. You're going to start asking people, hey, I noticed that you're feeling this way. What can I do to help? You're going to start listening to what they're saying and understanding what they're going through. You're going to be able to decipher, is this a listen or is it a fix it problem? When you change your inner voice to a more positive or healthy one, you're going to have more healthy behaviors, and you're going to notice the way that you speak to people is going to change. Mm-hmm. It's a huge impact in your life when you switch that mindset.
And you asked earlier, like, how can people at home start to reframe? I don't know if I have the magic formula for reframing. Like, that's more like an in-depth coaching. Mm-hmm. But to give another, I think of like a common example, and I just did this with you last week. Never say again, you're having a bad day. Instead, say, I'm having a character building day. That's it.
What's the power of that? What's the power of switching those words?
Because a bad day it's out of my control.
Yep.
One, nothing good's gonna come of it. I just want it to be over. How effective can you be if like you're trying to avoid and push something away?
Right.
Versus I'm having a character building day. You're still acknowledging like your day may be crap. Like we're not trying to take the crap out of it. But it's it's building my character. There's some positive, switching back to like, there's always the silver lining with you saying be positive. Yes, you can still say I'm having a crappy day and it sucks, but also it's building my character. It's teaching me to overcome obstacles.
Right.
Maybe it's teaching you an ineffective way to overcome obstacles, but then it's a learning experience. Right. So just reframing I'm having a bad day to I'm having a character building day can really change how you approach the problem and if you can get through it versus if you just try to put your head underneath the pillow and forget the day that's ever happened.
I agree with that. So guys, literally take some time tonight before you go to sleep and just think about the words that come out of your mouth on a daily basis. Think about your kids and how your words may either build them up or tear them down. Think about your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever. Think about that. How are you building them up? How are you using your words to impact them in a positive way? And even more importantly, or as equally as important, what words are you telling yourself? What is that inner voice that you have? Is it negative or is it positive and healthy? I want to challenge you to kind of review that in yourself and think of new ways that you can build yourself up.
And for those who need really concrete ideas, so this evening, or before, like you said, before you go to bed, just write down 10 thoughts you have. Do not put, don't overanalyze it. Don't be like, is this a good thought? Is this an important thought? Straight up 10 thoughts. I like my dog. My house is messy. Something about yourself. Just write down 10 thoughts that you're thinking. And then after you've written them down, go back and look at them. Is this thought serving me in a positive way? Yes, great, check, done, move on. Next thought, is this serving me positive? No. How can I reframe it? Right. Like the bad day to the character building day. Not lying to yourself, just changing the way you do it. And then look at that list and see how many things you checked off versus how many things you had to rewrite. And you might find it shocking at how you might think you're a really positive person, but you're giving yourself a lot of negative message.
Thoughts. Yeah.
I mean, I think we've challenged people to do this. Normally we make our coaching clients work a lot harder and they have to write down 50 thoughts, not 10. And it's shocking. We've had people tear up. I didn't realize how negative I was thinking because I come off so chipper and happy and positive.
Yeah.
You talk like crap to yourself though. Wow, that's big.
Right. Yeah. I got another quote for you guys. So I'm going to follow up on her with these quotes today. Loving or hating the life you are living is solely repeated in your self-talk.
Oh, amen to that. That is so true.
Right? So, like she said, you might be a positive person, but look at what's happening around your life. Are you happy with what's going on? Then you have to look inwards, right? And say, okay, what message am I feeding myself? If I love the life I'm living, you're going to experience more positive self-talk, more healthy self-talk, and how you talk and use your words with other people. But if you're hating the life that you live, now would be the time to start changing your mindset, start changing how you view your environment around you. Look at how you talk to people. Look at how you talk to yourself. Start changing that and you can have the healthy, loving life that you've always wanted.
Yeah, and even if you think you're positive, again, we're still going to challenge you to write down those thoughts because you can be friendly, you can be loving, you can mean it, and still have some really negative self-talk. And that means you're not aligned. Right, and so being able to align yourself inwardly and outwardly is really the goal.
Right.
And it's the most effective and meaningful.
Can I see your little diagram thing here again? So here's what we showed you earlier. We got the Bob and the Kiki. So I want you guys to start practicing words that are more flowing, positive energy into your life. Be more like Bob. I mean, we could probably pick a better name than that. Something better than Bob.
Hey, that was. Are you putting down my name, Bob?
I'm
all the Bobs out there. She apologizes.
I'm putting down Nikki's words, right? But be more fluid in your life. Be welcoming of those positive things that you tell yourself. Stop being sharp. Stop using your words to be sharp and hurt other people, even when you're not. That's not your intention, but it's happening. Watch your words. Start building people up. Start letting that flow into your life. Change your thoughts. Tell yourself you are a work in progress, even if you've been struggling with communication in your words. You are a work in progress, guys, and you can change that starting right now.
And I think with watching your mouth, we're so full of cliches today, but I'm okay with that. Because they're cliches and meaningful for a reason. Not everything we observe or think about needs to be said. So in watching your mouth, again, is it serving someone positively? Is it serving the world to be a better place? Is it serving to help someone grow? Maybe it's an area of concern, but you're helping them grow. Or is it just me being negative and just wanting to hear the sound of my own voice?
Right.
Like, is it useful to say it, or is it just a thought that needs to stay a thought and not follow through into behavior?
Right. So guys, please, if you have any questions, drop them down below. We can see them coming across our screen. We want to make sure that we cover any questions that you guys have, provide any guidance, how you can change, the words that come out of your mouth, or what we can do to help you learn and grow on your own individual journey. So with that being said, guys, please follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram account is BKLLC19. BK is in Bryant Katsaounis, LLC 19. You can also find us on Facebook at Bryant and Katsaounis Life Coaching. Would you like to spell your last name for them?
Sure. K, A as in apple, T as in Tom, S-A-O-U, N as in Nancy, I-S.
Yes. And guys, also, I know that they are sharing our details down here in the comments. If you are interested in receiving a consultation with us, please go to our website at visiondrivencoaching.com. You can hit the contact us, submit your information, and we will be in contact with you to set up a consultation for you. Okay?
And if anything, before we close, I hope if we gave you all these tips and even some homework, but to really, I think, the feeling to take out, because we kind of skipped over the feeling today, right? The feeling and the energy to take away is how powerful we can be intentionally or unintentionally. But regardless, the recipient still receives it. So make sure you are doing your due diligence and learning more about communication styles and how to effectively do it.
Right. Want to leave you guys with one last quote before we close. And that is, watch what you tell yourself, because you're likely to believe it. All right, guys. So every Wednesday at 4:30, you will see us, Mind Trip, exploring the connections between mindsets and mental health. We look forward to connecting with you guys next week.
See you next week.
See ya. Bye.